Hey everybody, welcome to Photography Chat, Season 2, Episode 28 with Micheal Behlen. We will just get Micheal on here and start the chat. And yeah, how's everyone's week going so far? Hope it's going well. Things have been pretty good up here in Vancouver. There we go, we got Micheal in, so let's invite him in. Hi, Spooky Bean. Hope things are well over there. Hello, Micheal.
Hey, how's it going?
Living the dream, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. Living the dream now that I'm off the day job.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
What's your day job for the people out there that may not be aware?
I work at a small local bank in my hometown.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Very different from what I do after 5 and on the weekends for sure, but it allows me to do it. So,
Yeah, I mean, like my day job is very different from my creative endeavors, so I totally get that.
yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It's great to have you on. It's been a while since I've seen you. It was 2019.
Yeah, man. That was such a good weekend. I was hoping that they would do it this year, but of course with everything, but
Hopefully next year.
yeah.
And like, it'll probably be better if it's next year because hopefully we'll have COVID a little bit more nailed down and, like variants will calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be super nice.
Agreed. Your beard looks way better than the last time I saw you.
Yeah, it's, it's my pandemic beard. I've kind of been like just letting it do its thing during this whole thing. Um, yeah, I've not seen a barber in like shit, almost a year and a half now.
Oh fuck, man. I go like I go like every 2 weeks because I'm just compulsive. But like,
I used to as well. Like it was like
yeah,
religious. I would go see a barber all the time, and like and I love the whole ritual of it because they do like the hot towel shave and
yeah,
get the bald fade and everything. Yeah, and then that shit just COVID kind of killed it for a bit, and then I've been too paranoid to like do it again. So
yeah. I feel you. Shout out to Gavin cutting my hair. Thanks.
yeah. Um, Shout out to the clippers I bought like 6 years ago that the battery hasn't died in yet. It's been
Yeah,
helping keep like the sides and back okay, but I've been going Grizzly Adams up top.
rock on, man.
Yeah, it works. I mean, I work from home now. I don't have to see customers other than on Zoom. And the Zoom virtual backgrounds has been hilarious because since it's so poofy now, it doesn't do with my hair, so it just balds me.
That's badass.
It's been kind of funny. I've been debating. It's like maybe I should just like shave it off. Oh shit! I think my landlady decided to start mowing the lawn. Just a sec here. Let me.
Tell her what's up, man. Hey, Allie.
Sorry about that. Just a sec.
You're good. So Merlin's out here closing windows, and he has me on for a live chat. There he is.
There we go. We are
Cool.
back. Yeah, so that was a fun weekend. So like for those of you that may not be aware, I originally met Micheal in 2019 in San Clemente during the Darkroom Labs Film Padea, and they had people from all over the place, hoarding down into San Clemente. Was it a Super 8 or like a Motel 6 or something? I can't remember.
It was like a Holiday Inn, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
something
Holiday Inn
like that. Yeah, maybe Holiday Inn.
for film geeks. It
Yeah,
was
it was fantastic. Like there was, they had some great speakers. There was Megan Schutz's film was speaking there. Grant Britton had a great session. Take, that's where I originally met him, and we've become like good pals now. Um, so yeah, I met a lot of really great people out of that San Clemente trip, and really missed traveling a lot.
yeah. Me too. And like, I know like everyone loves conferences, but I love drinking beer after conferences. That's like my number one hobby in front of going to conferences. Because like you just get to hang out with people and talk to them. And like when I went to last year, I guess, to Experimental Festival, like the night shindigs was probably like the coolest part, right? Because you get to like just be people, right? And we all have like our
Yeah.
thing to do. Like I run the magazine, and that's fun, but like really getting to know people over a pint, I guess, over there. It's fun.
Well, and that's a great point. So it's like I work in the tech industry, and one of the biggest conferences that used to happen in tech before the end of the world was something called VMworld, which is hosted by VMware, and it's a huge conference that would happen in San Francisco, and upwards of like 20 to 25,000. I think one time
Whoa.
we had like almost 30,000 nerds converge on San Francisco at Moscone. And the first year that I managed to make it down there, I was like running all over Moscone like fucking chicken with its head cut off, trying to attend all these sessions. And one of the OG people was like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" And I'm like, "Well, I gotta go to the sessions. I gotta learn stuff." They're like, "All that shit's gonna be online in like a few days. You don't come here for the sessions. You come here for the people, for this networking opportunity to like, where else are you going to find like so many people that share a common interest with you in one place?
Yeah.
That's what you're here for. Do the networking." They're like, forget the sessions. And that's something I found applicable in all conferences, not just tech ones, where it's like, it's more about the people that you can interact with than it is the workshops and things like that.
Yeah. And those are nice, but it's the excuse, right? Like either if it's corporate, they're not going to pay for you to go hang out, right? But
Exactly.
educational.
Well, I mean, so like I do technical pre-sales, so there's
Okay.
an aspect of that where I do get paid to hang out with people because we want them to give us their money. So it's like buy them drinks if it helps get money out of them.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so that feels a little hoary sometimes, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I
We
do
all
know
have our
something.
day jobs.
So I'm curious from banking to photography, like how did you get into photography? Like what was your genesis story there?
Man, I've told the story so much, and then like it gets condensed now. And like, dude, like honestly, I was like an 18-year-old kid, and I knew this guy named Mike Bot, and like I kind of grew up in the aughts, right? So like going to shows and like skinny jeans before they were cool, got a little like scene kid in me. And there was this guy who was like shooting shows and stuff, and like he just got tons of girls, dude. And like whether or not that's true or not, like he had some like local fame about him, and like he got to go see bands and like hang out with cool people. And I was like, man, I want to do that. Like that sounds like a lot of fun, right? And so like my my first like reason why I wanted to start that was mostly because I just thought this guy was super cool, right? And then like once I started doing it, like I really loved the technical aspect. I started off shooting digital, did shows, did all the normal stuff, like being a hobby guy, and then I decided that what, like I'm pretty good at this, like on the technical side. So I decided to start shooting weddings, and I did that for like 2 years. I assisted a bunch of weddings with my buddy Franklin, did some of my own, and I fucking hated it. It was the fucking worst. Like I
Yeah.
really hated it. So a couple years into it, I said, you know what, I'm over this. Like I did some like photo booth stuff, like at events here in my hometown, which was actually a lot of fun. Like I did New Year's Eve a couple nights for some big venues, like stuff like that. And one day I was just like, you know what, fuck this. Like I'm just gonna go shoot analog. And that kind of happened because I was a member of the Impossible Project Pioneer Program, and I got to test some beta film. And I tested it in this like really shitty, half broken SX70 that kind of worked, and the film kind of worked at that time. But
Yeah.
I
It
just
still kind of works today.
yeah, yeah, don't hate.
No, I don't hate. I love
Uh,
it so much, but it's just like, it's funny seeing the stuff on the forums where the guys are like, in 1970, Polaroid was the tits, and this stuff is bullshit now. And it's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fuck them for saving it, right?
yeah,
Bunch of But
Cheers.
so I was out with my buddy Con, with my friend Aaliyah and my friend Sabrina, and we like went on a walk like in this like nature area, and I just fell in love, man. It was like one of the best days ever. And ooh, all my pretty light turned off, man. I was trying to look all good for you. Um,
That's fine. You still got.
um, yeah, and that was it, man. I sold all my gear within a couple weeks, bought a bunch of film, and that's kind of my origin story, man. Just kind of like going from like really surface level vain reasons to like really just diving in and loving it. And I don't really know if the motivations matter anymore because it brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. I got into photography for similar problematic reasons in like the early 2000s because, who knew about that kind of bullshit back then? There wasn't Me Too back in those days. So, that was similar motivations to get into, and, digital path, but I didn't get into the analog aspect of it until just very recently. So,
How recent?
um, like 2000, maybe like late 2017, early 2018. It was when I moved to Toronto, and I started shooting again after like an almost 10-year hiatus. And digital was cool, and I just fell into like a really terrible rabbit hole of gas in Toronto because hipsters hadn't jacked up the prices too much yet at that point. So there was still tons of cheap, good gear. And I just went on this tear of buying all the things that I had always wanted to buy before that I could never afford. That all of a sudden it was just like, oh shit, I can buy an F5 for under $300.
Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And yeah, I bought way too many cameras, and now I need to sell a bunch.
Yeah.
The worst one though, well, the best one, but the worst affliction is Polaroid. That got me hard. it's that's a deep hole to fall down.
Yeah, man. Like even like I started shooting with that broken SX70, and then I immediately wanted an SLR 680 because I wanted to feel badass, and I did really bad. But like what most of my stuff I do on is a Sun 660 AF. It's
Yeah,
not.
the
That,
660 is super super underrated.
yeah, man. And like I have like not good vision in one eye, so like the parallax in the lens when you do landscapes, unless like you like take the camera and like go on the horizon and then pan down, it's hard to get it super symmetrical and even. So with the box camera, you can just and be done, right? So I got so sick of being like 5 degrees off in my landscapes, and but yeah, I still use the Mint 670 now just because I have control. But
Yeah, here I've got
this,
so I don't. Fuck it. Come on, get over here. So I don't have a 660 anymore because I've given away a lot of them and sold a bunch of them. At one point, I had like a half dozen of them because I was doing workshops.
yeah,
But before I left Toronto, I sold them all to people that wanted to get going. But this one, I kept this one because this one's a weird one. It's a Sun 670.
oh yeah,
I'd never seen one of those before. It's silver and it has like a silver sonar disc instead of the gold.
that's cool, man. I just knew that existed when I was looking at Retrospect's website like a week ago, and I was like, I didn't know it was a thing. Like I had no idea.
I came across it at I think a junk sale or something, or maybe Craigslist. It's kind of like busted up, but like for something that's like unique and a little different, I kind of dig it. I'll hang on to it for a while. But yeah, I love these box cams because like the sonar just makes it so easy. You can't not take a bad picture with this camera.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy, and like for me, I just leave everything on all the way dark. And that's it. That's all. At the end, right? And then, but I just got this guy, and I've had the gas on this a little bit, but I got the Noir version of this, the all black 670, and it's just, dude, it's just pimp. It's so cool, and it's lighter. I think they replaced this bottom or something with plastic because the other ones are all metal, like the original 670s or SX70s. So
No,
I'm
they're not actually metal though. Everyone thinks they're metal, but they're
really.
not. They're coated plastic.
Ah.
So like that's a funny thing because everyone thinks they're metal, but you know
Because
they're not.
it's significantly lighter than the other ones, for sure. And I don't
Huh,
know what they did to it, but it's definitely lighter than like the SX70s I'm used to. Like,
that's interesting. They
yeah.
maybe they found a way to like just sort of trim some weight down.
Or maybe I just got buff.
Yeah, it could be that too. Who knows? Um, I haven't made the jump into the 670 yet. Um, but I do have an Open SX70 camera. That's.
Fuck, man, I've
Oh,
been asking them for one, and I've been bugging them. I'm like, dude, I'll pay you whatever it takes to get one. Tell me about it.
I haven't had a chance to play with it yet.
Okay.
It was briefly in my hands for like a day, and then it had to go back to Texas because FedEx decided to fucking Ace Ventura it, and it was it. We had 6 cameras come back, and only 2 of them survived out of the 6. So the rest of them had to go back to Zane Pollard down in Texas for refurbishment. Um, but yeah, Zane kind of surprised me. He's just I sent a bunch of cameras down to him to get some work done, and he was like, "I got a spare sonar board, and I see you do a lot of like studio stuff with strobes. You know, we'd be curious to get your feedback on how this works in that kind of environment." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm not gonna say no to like playing with that." So I've got it's a black sonar that he did up for me with the Open SX70, and then he also made me a completely bespoke SLR 680 that's Frankenstein from a silver SX70 sonar, and
Cool.
then the 680 parts put onto it. And then he also put a split focusing screen from an original SX70 in there, so that when you do manual, you've got that split level in there. So um, those were the 2 of mine that got trashed in that shipment, which had to go back. So he was just dropping those off at UPS today. So hopefully UPS is a little more gentle this time around. I can't wait to play with those ones.
I know. So like I was like briefly talking. Who's the other gentleman in Barcelona or in Spain who's doing it?
Oh man, I can't remember.
Name escapes me. But I was so dumb. I was at the festival last year for experimental, and he was like trying to track me down, and like I wasn't like ignoring him, but like I was like ADD all over the place, like running around, like high fiving people like an animal. And like he's like, I want you to try this camera. And I'm like, I want to try it, but I was just, dude. Okay, so here's the thing: when you go to Barcelona, they have like the espresso machines, but it's like
Yeah.
everywhere. Soda for people in Spain. So I was like just taking shots like I was in a rap video and of espresso, and I was just running around being crazy, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, long story short, I didn't get to try it, and now when I came back, I was like, how cool would it be if like they had like Air Jordans, but they had like SX70, like made like artist versions that you could buy that were like endorsed by specific artists, and like that'd be so cool, man.
That could be it. I mean, the Open SX70 project is a really interesting project all around. Um, it's it's interesting because, like, from what I understand, Polaroid is like cool with it as long as they don't sell it. Um, where it's like, if you turn this into a product, they'll sue the pants off of them basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that happened with Andres from Polaroid of the Day, which is not no longer called that, right? Like they
with which one, sorry?
Polaroid of the Day. Andres from like he's in Spain. He ran that website that's now like Instant Photographers,
Oh, okay.
and that's why he had to change the name. I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to say that. Sorry, everybody, but I know I think the reason why he changed the name. I'm not sure if that's common knowledge, but I know they are. I mean, they bought. I mean, in their defense, they bought the intellectual property rights to that name, and like I get it, right? From a business sense, like I work 9 to 5 in corporate America. Like they paid like $1 jillion for that name. So is it cool? Not really. Do I get it? Yeah.
Well, and I think the latest iteration isn't so much buying the IP, but it's like the
Thanks, Crom.
well Polaroid originals um, merged together with what was left of Polaroid, which is just basically an intellectual holding property company at
Yeah.
that, and just made one small company because they're still not very big. It's definitely not like Polaroid of like all those angry white guys on the forums day.
Yeah.
Uh, like when it was like tens of thousands of employees back then. Like I think there's still like probably under 50 people globally running everything right now, which is wild to think. Like I appreciate their commitment and as janky as the film can be sometimes, I'm still super stoked that I can shoot these cameras that, for all intents and purposes, should be relics by now. But
Yeah.
they continue to take my money from me.
Like my TV is like 5 years old and it's already like going out. But like this camera from like I don't know when was the SX70 made in the 60s, right?
Yeah, so SX70. Did you ever read the history of like how SX70 became a thing?
Like so I've read like the posts that like people have made about it, but like I haven't ever like remembered it, right? I know like Edwin Land like trying to do the impossible, hence the Impossible Project, right?
Well, okay, yeah, so kind of. So
Yeah,
SX70 was quite interesting because a lot of people aren't aware, but Polaroid's biggest success was as a defense contractor during World War II. So that's where they made the bulk of their money, where they had the deep war chest to just do all the nerdy shit that they did going forward. And all the projects they worked for the U.S. government were designated special experiment with a number. So SX and then a designation.
yeah. Oh,
Last
cool.
project they did for the U.S. military was SX69. When Dr. Land wanted to launch integral film and the new camera and all that, he didn't want any of the competitors to know that he was building a new camera and a new film format. So they codified it SX70 so that the competitors would just think they were working on another government project and not try and figure out what Polaroid was up to because Land went crazy on it. Like they ramped up a brand new facility to build the film. They ramped up a brand new facility to make the cameras. They were machining all the parts to do everything was all custom and in house. And they figured if they put it as a government project, no one would be the wiser, and no one was. And it launched in the late early 70s
Got
and it upended everything. And the name SX70 just stuck as the product name until they went into like the SLRs and things like that. But that's where the sonar autofocus actually came from one of the projects they did for a missile guidance system for the U.S. military. So that's where the tech for the sonar autofocus comes from is
I feel
missile.
cooler now, dude, shooting with this camera.
Dude, it's such a cool camera, and the history of the company is just so fascinating. Like, it's a travesty that corporate greed tanked Polaroid, because like that's the thing that's super sad about it is a Ponzi scheme is what really killed Polaroid in the end.
Do you
Like,
hear about it? Like in like 2 minutes or less, like what happened with that?
so when Dr. Land got ejected from the company, the problem that Dr. Land created was he was so brilliant that he created this amazing company with all these amazing people, but he didn't foster an environment where there would be a number two. So he was the number one, and then a ecosystem of number threes revolved around him that needed Papa Land's permission to do anything. And when he got ejected from the company by the board, there was no one that could step up to take over for him. So some people tried, but they were sort of like, there's like no Papa Land to ask for permission anymore. Now I'm supposed to be the number one. And it just turned into this succession of failures of people trying to run the company that just like tanked it further and further and further until investment companies basically were like managing the company at that point. And some dude who looked really great on paper. I can't remember his name right now, but he looked really great on paper because he had this like huge real estate business that looked amazing. And the banks were like, you can run this shit. You look like you're a solid dude. But what they didn't realize and what came out later was that his whole empire was basically a Ponzi scheme, and he wanted to get into Polaroid because even though Polaroid was doing shit from a business perspective, they were still very capital rich because they owned all of their properties, they had a ton of real estate holdings, and so he wanted Polaroid for that, and he
Yeah.
started liquidating all of Polaroid's hard assets so that he could steal that money to put into his Ponzi real estate scheme to keep up his appearance of being rich. And the only reason Impossible exists today is because he was getting indicted by the Supreme Court for his Ponzi bullshit, and so they paused the destruction of the Netherlands factory because of that. And so that gave Florian and those guys that window to find financing to scoop up that factory before it got destroyed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Polaroid today.
I didn't even know it was like that close to when Florian was trying to take over. Like, I didn't know it was that short of a window. Like, I mean, I read it back then, but that was, that was
It
a
was
lot,
an, it was an
right?
extremely short window. Like they basically had the weekend to find financing and put it all together. And that's where the idea came up was Florian was at the farewell party for the plant and asked like the plant manager, what do you think the odds are of bringing this film back? And that's where he's like, it would be virtually impossible, and that the Impossible Project name came from that meeting where they had that. But that the fact that he was being sued and had to go to court, that gave them a brief window to like scoop that up. And then it was also like another chance happening too. Apparently, because the Netherlands plant was the finishing plant, they didn't have all of the other
Yeah.
parts to make the other chunks of the film. They lucked out and found all the other components they needed in a warehouse in Boston where it was supposed to have been destroyed, but someone forgot about it. And it had just been sitting languishing in this like random warehouse for like decades. And
Hell,
so it
thank
was a
God.
mixture of a total fluke chance that we have Polaroid film today because of that brief window where the dude was getting sued, and then them lucking out and finding the rest of the equipment they needed to build stuff. Um, JPS is their biography of some. So I learned all of this from several different Polaroid books. I'll send them another time. They're all stacked up, but it was like the one that had the most information. Let me grab them.
Always looking. Hey, Crom, how are you, man? Thanks for.
Okay. So this one had the best information on like Polaroid as a company. Land's Polaroid, which was written by Peter Wensberg. It's been out of print for ages, but sometimes you can luck out and find a used copy of it. But he worked for Land for a really long time, and he was part of like the inner circle. And this is where like a lot of the interesting stories of like Polaroid of the past. Where I learned a lot of that stuff, like how they put it together, like the SX70, things like that. This is a really great book to just learn about like old school Polaroid. Um, Instant, The Story of Polaroid by Christopher Bananos. This is a really great book too that had a lot of fantastic information on it too, where they got into a bit of like the story of like the failure and Impossible kind of like taking over and stuff. And then Florian's book was also really, really great. Polaroid, The Magic Material by Florian Capps is a fantastic, fantastic book. So I'd highly recommend these three if you are really interested in geeking out about Polaroid. And then if you want to experiment with Polaroid stuff, Rhiannon Adams' book, Polaroid, The Complete Guide to Experimental Instant Photography. This is a cool book for finding different things to experiment with Polaroid film. And
Totally.
it has
Great.
a lot. really great information on the different cameras and the different film stocks that have existed. So if you're a Polaroid nerd, this is a great book to track down.
So speaking of new books, I'm sure most people have seen it, but Polaroid Now just came out.
Yeah, I saw that on your story. Congratulations on
Oh,
that.
thanks, man. Like, this book is full of so many awesome people that like we can now call friends. And like I haven't even really gone through the whole thing, but what's really cool is that rest in peace, Penny Feltz is in here, and she was one of the nicest, coolest people to me ever. And I think what's cool about the whole story of Polaroid is that if Doc wouldn't have saved instant film, like nothing that I'm doing for the last 8 years of my life would exist. Like PRYME magazine wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have met Crom. I wouldn't have met Penny. I wouldn't have met a lot of people. I wouldn't even be shooting analog film. I wouldn't have started Analog Forever magazine. Like, it's crazy how that, as cliche as it sounds, that butterfly effect has led me to, and us, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah.
to where we are now. And it's just the coolest, man. And congratulations to all my friends that I can call friends now that are in the book, and it's just super good. It's really simple. There's just a lot of, man, I'm really bad at this.
That's all right.
But it's just pictures and names. But there's an intro by Oscar, current board member. I don't know if he's CEO anymore. And then, of course, there's by Mr. Reuter. He has an essay in here, and he's one of the last guys that still knows how to do that 20 by 24 camera. And that's pretty cool. So
the 20 by 24 is wild. Like,
yeah,
I got a picture of my 4x5 sitting in front of a 20 by 24 camera at the Denton Camera Exchange down in Denton, Texas. And it was just insane how like it just dwarfed my camera so much.
yeah, it's so cool, man. I don't even know if they have any stuff left. I think they have a little bit left. I'd have to ask Mr. Reuter on that, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely cool stuff. And like, I mean, likewise with your story, I probably wouldn't have gotten this deep into photography had it not been for Polaroid either. Mostly because like I got wicked inspired by Jason Lee and his 8x10 work, and I really wanted to do 8x10, and then I saw how much 8x10 cost, and I was like, okay, this is why Jason Lee does 8x10.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to be a famous rich, or maybe he's not rich, famous actor to afford shooting 8x10 on a regular basis.
Well, there's like talking with him about it later though. It's like when he got into it, it was still pretty cheap. So
Yeah,
like he bought out a ton of the stock from Freestyle Camera and I think Sammy's camera too. So like it wasn't that expensive when he got into it, but like by the time I saw the interview where he was talking about it, and I was like, holy shit, that's so cool! I want to do this. It was really expensive, and I've got like 2/3 of what I need to start shooting 8x10 now. I'm missing the camera right now. So one day.
yeah. One day, I've always thought like, you know, like people dream like, okay, I'm gonna buy a lot. So a little bit about me. I buy a lotto ticket once a month for $2, right? And that's my thrill, right? Because I'm an old man now. But so I'm like, man, what would I do if I won? I'm always like, I'm gonna shoot 8x10 Polaroids, right? Like I'm not gonna like save. I probably want to save the world. That's number two. But number one is like that's what I would do, right? Like I would travel and do that. And I think other people want to go on like extravagant vacations or buy Lambos. I'm like, man, I just want to shoot 8x10 instant film. So yeah,
Yeah, that I buy 2 lotto tickets a month. And same thing, like if I were to win, I would be buying a Deerdorf 8x10 and a shit ton of 8x10 Polaroid. Maybe try and find one of those really rare and expensive Calumet hand crank 8x10 processors because it'd be a little easier to manage that on the road. I did track down like one of the OG Polaroid 8x10 processors and a couple of holders. at a not bend you over price, which was kind of nice because that stuff is so expensive now. But in the interim, I still shoot the 4x5 with pack film, and I've got some Type 55 and stuff left, so that sort of like satisfies the large format bug. But man, I even remember too when I started getting the Polaroid bug and I saw an SX70 for the first time, it became this like object of desire that I was like, I'm never gonna have one of these. They're so expensive. They must be so rare.
Yeah.
And now I've got way too many of them.
Yeah. Well, I always like sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy. Like I never have more than like 2 cameras at a time. And like 2 years ago, dude, like I was such a drama queen. I was like, all right, I'm done with instant film. Like I did an interview with like instant photographers, and I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna shoot medium format now. That's my thing. And I fucking hated it, man. Like I didn't hate it. I'm just being dramatic, but like I thought I was gonna be done, and I picked up a Mamiya 7, and I used it for a year. And dude, it's sharp, it's awesome, great, but I just realized I really don't like being in front of the computer that much. And I know that sounds silly, but like we shoot film, but we got to use like the scanner, Negative Laugh Pro, and I do all this stuff because I'm not a darkroom guy. I don't have the capacity. So, I spend all day on the computer, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this. That's why I got into instant film to begin with, right? It's like I'm really going back to square one. My medium of capture happens to be analog. And I was like, man, no, it was cool. But now I'm like, once again, I'm like, man, I should have waited like 8 months to sell that baby.
Yeah, because you could.
Yeah.
It's insane how expensive that shit is right now.
Yeah, I got one for like $2,500, right? Sold it for about the same, and now they're like $4,000. It was like pretty mint. So I made some good money on it, but whatever. Whatever. So
Well, it's interesting too, like when you see some of the people that try to capitalize on film shooting. So it's like I'm an admin on a Canadian film photography like a share group for like buying and selling, and some dude just posted a couple packs of the Pro 400 AH 120,
mm-hmm.
and like he's asking like not crazy money, but like nearly double what they're going for, and you can still buy like it's not super scarce yet.
Yeah.
Like Fuji has discontinued it, but they're still trickling out shipments of it, and you can still buy it from places. Like I just bought a few packs of it for like $9 a roll just a couple weeks ago, and they're getting more shipments of it in where I bought it for that. And so a lot of people were like kind of condemning this guy for being like, bro, too soon, because like he's asking like
$20 or
yeah, it's like he's asking $18 a roll right now when it's like 9. And he's like, it's scarce. It's like, yeah, the 35 millimeter is scarce because like they shut that shit down like a while back. But like 120, they're still shipping out boxes of it. So it's just interesting seeing people capitalizing on that because it's like, oh, film's hot right now, and people, will pay money for it because it's rare, and it's like, it's not yet.
Yeah.
Like,
well, dude, like when FP100C they announced it was like over with. Like I waited like 90 days, and I sold it like for what I paid for it. Like I was like, dude, like I'm not gonna be that guy that hoards like times zero. Like I'm not going to use it. I sold my land cameras, and it wasn't really my thing anymore. Because when I picked up a land camera, I originally liked expired 669 because it was blue, and I like blue, and like all my work that I do is pretty blue, right? And that's just my jam. So FP100C just wasn't. It was just normal film, and it was cool, but I sold it, and for at cost, and like a lot of people were super stoked, and like I don't know. Karma in that. I just don't think you do that to people.
And see, like, I appreciate that kind of approach to it because, like, I cringe when I see the prices that FP100C are going for right now, and it's like, I really hate capitalism. It's just there's a supply and demand thing, and like there's very little supply and a lot of demand because there's all these people that are seeing these cool YouTube videos or whatever, or people that use it as their creative process and like haven't moved on to something else. And it just kind of kills me to see when people are just like, oh yeah, I'll sell it for like 130 a pack, and it's just like, ugh. Like, I mean, I tapped out the last fresh pack that I bought, I think was like 60 bucks. And then I was like, this is too much. I'm not gonna do it at 60 a pack. Um,
And I just, yeah, to some people it is. Like, I don't shame people, but I just think maybe like I'm like the most like corporate hippie in the world. You know what I mean? Like after 5 o'clock, but like if it's just sitting here, like do I need to make a quick buck? Like really? Like is that? I don't know. That's a personal choice for everybody. But I will say if like Polaroid ever shuts down, I'm maxing out like all my credit cards. I'm just gonna buy like 1,000 packs of film and like that's what like Micheal Kennedy. He did Passport to Trespass, those
okay,
zines.
yeah.
Yeah, right. So he's like my idol, right? Like, and like I fanboy over him. I got to interview him twice in the last 5 years for different stuff I've done, which is super cool. So
Yeah.
like, I know like when that was going out of style, that's what he did, and I'm like, man, like, good move. That was such a good move.
Yeah.
And like it was when Time Zero was going out, and same thing for Polaroid. And but yeah, and are we going to live till 7? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I usually do it for like an hour or so, or like
Cool.
whenever we get bored of the conversation. I kind of keep it pretty organic with the chats.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I thought about it because I've got a small stash of FP100, and I thought about selling it because I was like, if I wanted to be a dick, I could make a bunch of money off of it. But then I wouldn't buy it back because like I couldn't in good conscience spend that much money on
Yeah.
FP100. So I'm gonna hang on to it and shoot it. But Time Zero, like, oh man, that's one film that bums me out that I didn't get into um, analog shooting earlier
Yeah.
because like I was alive when it was still selling. I could have been shooting it this whole fucking time, but like I missed out on it. And like Raymond Molinar, I don't know if you saw his Time Zero book, but absolutely gorgeous. Like the photos that he had in there are just stunning. And like he got addicted to the medium and was hunting for Time Zero whenever he was like traveling and stuff. And so there's like some interesting stories of like how he tracked down the Time Zero that he used for most of the book. And yeah, like that's something that's fascinating with like the instant film stuff.
Yeah. I wish like okay, so like my son's mom's grandparents found a pack of Time Zero. Like this is like 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, and she mailed it to me.
Oh
And
wow.
this is my chance. I've never got to do this. I'm so stoked. Fucking dead and dry. And it was like the saddest day of my life, man. So it sucks, man. Thanks, Phyllis, if you're watching, you're the best. But,
Well, I hope you could find a decent pack sometime because it is a magical emulsion. Like I found two packs in Toronto last year, and I shot one of them, and it was so good. Like it was so good. I'm still have one pack left that I'm saving for I don't know something special.
when is the save it till when it's dead time? Like when? How long do you think it's gonna last?
I don't know. It's in the fridge, so hopefully it'll last a bit.
Yeah.
But I need to shoot it soon.
Is it
Like
like 2006, 7, 8, 9 pack or
I think it was a 2006 pack.
cool?
So
Is that the last year? I forget, but I know like '06 is like one of the latest packs you can get.
it might have been the last year. So it's like Time Zero is like another interesting one too because the reason Time Zero no longer exists was because of hurricane.
What?
Um, the main compounds for it came from a chemist that was in an area that was affected by a hurricane. It wiped out their chemical factory, and they were like old and decided to retire instead of rebuilding. So that's why Time Zero went away because they were the only ones that made that compound that made Time Zero special, and so it just disappeared.
So what I've always thought is like, let me check this out. I got this thing, which I'm gonna try this weekend. But I got this guy on Etsy. He's on Facebook and other places, but he makes these little filter holders that are 37 millimeter or
Oh,
32
cool.
or whatever it is. So what is it? Yeah, the 37. So it just goes like right on, right? And this is leading somewhere, but it goes right on, right? And I got a 37 millimeter 10 stop ND filter.
Whoa.
I'm gonna try and I got one of the original. What do you call it?
Oh, the shutter release. So you're gonna try doing bulb mode with it then, and do some like long exposures?
Yeah, man. I'm going up on Saturday. This Saturday to a local area in the Sierra National Forest near my place. It's called Shaver Lake. I like tons of my fog water photos on my Instagram are from that area, and like I refuse to go anywhere if there's no clouds because like I'm a moody jerk.
Yeah.
So dude, like I don't know if you experienced that. I know we're attentioning, but like someone's like, "Hey man, you want to go to the beach? It's gonna be sunny today." I was like, "I don't want to go if it's sunny. That's pointless. I can't take pictures. Like I don't want to do that. That sounds so boring and stupid. What do you want me to do? Like relax on the beach? That sounds terrible."
Yeah, just bake in the sun.
Yeah, man.
I'm not usually a beach guy, but with the heat dome that we had recently here in Western Canada, when it was like insanely fucking hot, um, I did find myself going to the water more than I have in probably the last 10 years because it was too hot.
Yeah. So you're in Toronto. Do you? I know not everyone like listens to the same music, but like, do you like Dallas Green? Do you listen
I
to?
do like Dallas Green, but I'm no longer in Toronto. So I was originally in Toronto, but
Oh,
I
okay.
recently moved to Vancouver in May.
God,
So I'm on the West Coast now again.
for like $150, man. And I saw him like in 2014 in Oakland, and like I've never been starstruck before, but there's just something about his presence, man. It's like the most humbling, beautiful, angelic voice in like this like the guy. He's just a guy, but he's just so great. And I think that's why I was like, he doesn't have that rock star attitude about him, but that's why I think he is so cool. You know?
Dallas Green is fantastic. I haven't had a chance to see him live, but I do enjoy his music. But I did have a similar experience to what you were describing when I saw John K. Sampson, who is a musician from Winnipeg that was part of he was in Propagandy for a little bit, and then he was founded the Weaker Thans, and I was like a huge emo kid in the 2000s, and so I really love like the Weaker Thans and like
Yeah.
Dashboard Professional and like all that kind of shit. Um, and I saw him live for the first time at the Horseshoe Tavern in Toronto, which was famous for like the Tragically Hip and stuff. And he made me cry. Like
Oh,
it just like so because he was singing all his old songs, but it was just like it was him solo with just the guitar, and it was just very moody and emotional. And yeah, I love those kind of shows and those kinds of musicians.
yeah, dude, me too. Like I have like an amphitheater in a local park kind of near my house, and a few years ago, like Taking Back Sunday and Dashboard did like a can't
Oh,
book
man.
large venues tour, right? Like, cause they're not, it's not the aughts anymore, right?
Yeah,
But it was like the best. Like, there's probably I live in a town of like 1.5 million people probably, and there's probably a couple thousand people there that it was just fun, man. Like, and I had my instant film camera, and I bring it most where I go unless I'm going to have too much fun, and then I leave it at home. So yeah, but back to what I was saying about I don't know what I was saying. Why I talked about Dallas Green.
I haven't thought about Dashboard Confessional you were talking about Toronto.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
You
I miss Toronto. Like it had a fantastic live music scene pre-COVID. Hopefully it comes back. Um, that was one of the things I missed, like when COVID really wrapped its grips around everything was just losing all of those public events and things that we really took for granted.
Yeah, man. Like I have tickets to go see. Like I'm such a scene kid. I'm not even embarrassed. Like I love Dance Gavin Dance so much, and I have tickets to see them in October, but I'm sorry, September. But I don't think that they're gonna go. Because I just think things are gonna shut down again. I really do. Like the Delta variant and the Lambert variant, and like I'm not really pretty cynical dudes. Like in general, like I'm not really those like, oh, it's gonna be okay. Like I may say that to people, but I'm like, dude, shit's fucked. Like, like, and I don't want to be that guy, like, in public or, like, not even really family, like, but, like, we're going to live with this for a long time, and I don't think it's going to go away. It's going to become like the flu, and we're going to get immune to it or have some resistance to it or whatever. I'm not a scientist. I barely know what I'm talking about, but I don't think it's over. So
it's far from over. Like, we're going to have COVID season instead of flu season, except the only joy of COVID season is that it's all year round, which, not so much fun on that front. But yeah, like it's changed everything. And the thing that I am more freaked out about than like the virus itself is the financial repercussions that we're yet to see from the lockdowns and the shutdowns and like the economic.
There goes Burr.
Yeah, like it's
Burr. Yeah, man.
That's gonna be where shit gets really interesting. Is like in the next coming years, post COVID. Yeah.
I think
they're really fun.
About that is that we've been kicking the can down the road, printing money for like forever. So I know we've printed more in the last year than we have in whatever the math is, 20 years. But everyone else is doing it, so we're inflating as much as everyone else. So I'm not too worried about it. We're all in the same ship, and if it goes down, we're all screwed. So I don't think anyone's going to come out and we don't want to really steer the conversation to Doomerville, but
no, it's just an interesting thing to think about because I think it's shifted a lot of priorities for people. It's definitely shifted a lot of priorities for me of like what was important and what I want to focus on. And most of it is just like I'd like to focus more on connecting with people in the community and creating things to leave behind that are more tangible. It's sort of like the takeaway that I've been left with from COVID is that like that was what I missed the most was like the community and tangible things.
Yeah, man, I agree. And like I'm kind of I guess I'm kind of a hermit or a loner for the most part. Like I spend a lot of my time alone, and maybe a lot of that's out of necessity. Like, how old are you? Do you care if I ask?
40.
Okay. Like I'm 33, and like I feel like I have a 12-year-old too, right? And like I'm a weekday dad just because of logistics. My son's mom is with my kid, our child, like Friday to Sunday. So like during those 3 days, like I'm either working on the magazine or like I'm in the woods, right? Like I don't spend a lot of time with people anymore, and like I actually did that for the first time like 6 weeks ago. Like outside my job, like my buddy like came to my house and like dragged my ass out and was like, dude, you gotta like not be weird and like talk to people. So so I did. Dude, I had a blast. I had such a blast. And I just kind of forgot. Like I think if you don't do it and you kind of lose that skill or that desire to do it, like not that you become numb to it, it's just like you forget that it feels so fucking good just to be like if this conversation was in person, like over a bench table, like in a patio of a beer garden, it'd be like so much cooler, right?
Yeah.
And forget that, like, because everything's via screens, and like even with your job, I'm sure my job, like I know for sure, like even my meetings and implementation meetings were all via Zoom. Like I don't get to go out and like, hey, let me help you with this. And like, there's some, I don't know, we're wired for it, man. And I think those wires get crossed when you don't do it for so long, and it's weird to like come out of it. But
we're social creatures, and
yeah,
it's hard like having that disconnect over the past like year and a bit. So yeah, I definitely feel that. It's good that your friend got you out.
I love you, Con. You're the man. So, I mean, Khan's the one who's the reason why I started the magazines.
Well, and so I was going to ask you about this. So how did you get analog? Like what got Analog Forever started? Like
Yeah.
what inspired that?
To answer that question, I have to answer a different question, and that's I started this instant film zine called PRYME.
Okay.
This is like in 2014, and like I had a lot of help along the way, but I basically designed, wrote, edited, printed, shipped all by myself, right? And it was freaking cool. Like was the quality good? Not really. Like it was great. I was the only one doing it, but I got started at that because I was complaining to Khan like in 2014, like 8 years ago, and I was like, dude, like I can't get anyone to publish my instant film photos. Like no one takes me seriously. Like I'm an instant film guy. And he's basically said, well, why don't you just do it yourself and like stop complaining? That's his advice to me about everything. Like just stop complaining and do it yourself. So I did, and I did that, and then thanks to Crumb, and then that's how I met everybody that I know. So like I met Penny Feltz, Crumb, Bastian, Thomas Zamalo, like all these guys that were like my inspiration during the Polaroid days when I was just starting out, and they allowed me to publish their work and had a lot of trust. So fast forward, I have a habit of like diving too deep and burning out like really fast. Like it's a 3-year cycle for me. Usually like I'll do something, I can prolong the burnout, and then one day I'm just like, fuck this. Like I don't want to do it anymore. Right. So I stopped. I did that. Like I literally just said, you know what, guys, I'm over it. I'm done. Right. So I took a break for about 1.5 years, and then I was like, you know what, maybe I want to publish books. Right. I did 3 books. Did like a gallery opening, did that for a while, and then kind of just faded. I said, I don't want to do that either. I liked doing like a periodical, right? So I took about a 1.5 year break ish. It's kind of fuzzy timeline, but that's okay. And then I was sitting once again in the same place where my buddy Khan said, do it yourself. And he said, dude, you look really bored. Like I know like when you're not stressed out or stimulated or overwhelmed, like you're just not having that much fun. So I said, you're right. I should just do that again, right? So I texted Michael Kirchhoff, who I previously featured on PRYME, and he's previously one of the editors for Blur magazine. He does photo reviews for Photo Claudia, etc. Right? So I texted him, I was like, hey, dude, you want to start a magazine? Like I was a few beers deep, dude. Like, I didn't think he was going to respond or say yes. And he's like, yeah, dude, let's do it. I was like, fuck, now we got to do this thing, right? He didn't even think I was going to say yes. So we kind of like shoot ourselves into this thing, and that's the story, man. Like I say that to a lot of people. Like we're just dudes. Like we're not. I mean, we've experienced curating, we've experienced writing. We've done it, but we all start from scratch, like everyone. So I mean, even 8 years ago, I didn't even shoot an instant film camera or an analog camera, and now I'm like, I guess, attempting to become, if not already, one of the people that say what's good and what's not, and and that's weird to me because like my opinion is no better than anyone else's, but we're just doing this thing and we love it, and I think that's really why people listen. It's because we're not doing it for any other reason. So
That's cool. I like that kind of story.
yeah. So
Like,
yeah,
what
we just. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, that's no problem.
We just released edition 4 with Chris McCaw on the cover, and I'm really stoked about this one, man. I think design-wise, it's one of the best ones we've done, and the words we're getting better at writing. We're getting really good at this stuff, right? And I think the coolest thing ever is and I'm like, there's a little bit of ego with everything we do, regardless if we believe it or not, right? We don't do everything benevolently. We're not amazing, selfless creatures, right? But what feels really good is someone just picked up edition 3 that came out 6 months ago in like Singapore, and they messaged me today, and he's like, dude, like the magazine's great, blah 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 blah. But he's like, dude, like your intro letter like was really inspiring, and I'm like, dude, my English teacher does not fucking believe you at all. Like, I was ditching class and not paying attention, but it's just kind of cool that you can actually do things that you didn't think you could do when you're passionate about why you're doing it, and maybe like that ties into how we teach kids in general, right? Maybe if I actually had an interest in any of that, maybe I would have gone farther, but I ended up there. So it's just pretty cool, man.
That's wild. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah. Dude, I'm like an open book too. Like I don't have any like weird taboo things like I'm not willing to talk about either. So like any questions you have, I'm pretty open, even if it is like embarrassing. So
What's been the oddest thing that you've shot so far, or like oddest experience shooting something?
um I don't know why the story comes to mind, but like it was in my digital days. My friend Chris Keller like texts or calls me like the day before and he's like, dude, we're gonna be in a Chiodos music video. You just have to show up at this place like at 4 a.m. in like downtown crazy Los Angeles. I'm like 18, like I've never been to LA, like I've never taken the bus, like so I did it and I did it. And I like walked around with my camera and like come to find out like really stupid place for me to be at 3 in the morning. Like could have got robbed or mugged or whatever. And but at the time, like I felt safe, and I think that's why it was so cool. Like I didn't know, so like I didn't have any fear of it, and I think that's what's kind of cool about like the rest of the work that I do in general. Like if you don't really know what's supposed to be good, everything you do is good to yourself, and that's like why you should be doing it anyways. Like you're your own harshest critic, so like if you love it, fucking cool. So like that's kind of like something that's kind of stuck with me a little bit through the time. And I was in like a Chiodos music video, which is really crazy. Like Craig Owens is walking around with a bottle of like Patron in like a Gucci bag, acting like a queen. That was pretty cool.
That sounds hilarious. That's a
Yeah,
great movie.
but yeah, that's really the oddest thing. And I think beyond that, I don't really do. I'm a pretty like square dude in general. I mean, maybe other people from my youth don't agree with me, but I'm pretty square now. And like I just like shooting landscapes. It's calming to me, man. Like I go out alone and turn my phone off and just relax. And it's like the most anti opposite thing from the rest of my life. And it just it's nice, man. I know that doesn't sound like any like crazy artistic thing, but I just like I think it's okay for people to say I just like taking photos and I'm a photographer and like I don't have to have a project, I don't have to have a theme. I can just go do this and enjoy it. And maybe other people will dig it and that's cool, but if not, that's okay too. Like I think people focus too much on likes and smash that button and I think and I get it, but like there's so many there's only so many pictures of like half naked women on expired film that I could see before I throw up. And,
Yeah, I mean, it's a friend, he coined it "dude perfect,"
yeah, dude.
and there's too much dude perfect photography out there, which I'm glad that Danielle and Chris B and their other cohort started the film sorority and are working on amplifying more female
What is
photographers.
that? Can you tell me more about that?
You haven't come across that? Okay. So Danielle, Girl with Too Many Cameras,
Yeah. Okay.
she started this hashtag Women with Film Wednesday. And it was to amplify female photographers because there's just a large swath of photographers out there all posting the same nude image of women, which gets very boring and not very fun, or it's just a ton of gas stations on Cinestill, which is also not
Well,
not
okay,
very.
being like a white guy from suburbia, like I definitely love the Cinestill like gas station thing, dude. Like I think it's like encoded in our DNA for whatever stupid reason. But like I'll see like an abandoned shot on Cinestill or like you know the 1,000th person that went to Hong Kong or Tokyo and like brought their T2 with some Cinestill, and
Yeah,
every time I'm just like that's sick. I can't help it.
like that neon on Cinestill is pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
I won't deny that. But yeah, she started the hashtag Women with Film Wednesdays to amplify other female photographers, and then she collaborated with a couple of other really great female photographers, and they started the film sorority. Um,
The film sorority.
yeah, the film sorority, and it's curated by Danielle, Girl with Too Many Cameras, Crispy Photo, and by Onami. Um, and the three of them focus mainly on amplifying female photographers. And I think it's hugely important because there's so many talented photographers out there that don't have penises that really should be
Yeah.
amplified, that are shooting things that are like really interesting and have views that are more interesting. And I also think with like a lot of the Me Too stuff that has come to light in recent years, I think it's more important for female photographers to be more amplified to do those types of shoots where there's less of like a male gaze kind of thing, and it can actually be more artistic instead of like this is artsy because tits and ass.
Right. That's
It's
crazy. So I know
um,
Chris, right? I didn't realize I was the same Chris. I was on Analog Talk two years ago, and I already followed Danielle. I just didn't know. So like, what's hard for me is like, dude, we get like hundreds of emails a week. So like, it's just overload, right? So like, I don't really even spend any more time on Instagram, but I need to.
yeah,
So and we're actually looking for stuff like what you just shared. So that's amazing. Thank you. Well, what's cool for us is we're a team of like 4 dudes and 3 gals, 2 gals, one kind of part-time gal. And what's weird is we actually find the women on our team are actually writing more about, this is like general, not always true, but write about men. And we've kind of tended to write more about women. I don't know why that is, but like how we go through work too is like we don't look at like, or I don't, right? Because I'm filtering most of the submissions. I don't look at name, location. Like I look at the images first before I look at any other information, and like I realize there's some like biases about how I see the world to begin with that affect what I choose to begin with. So like I'm not ignorant to that, but I do always have a second pair of eyes. But we generally pick work based on work, and then if we do ever have like need to go back and forth about what we want to feature, we really say, well, have we done this before? And if not, if there's someone that deserves recognition because they're other underrepresented or not, and that's always secondary on our system. We may get in trouble for saying that. I don't know what's politically correct anymore, but our goal really is to love the work that we're writing about, because we spend hours and hours and hours interviewing and writing articles on people, and if you're not into it, your article's gonna suck.
yeah,
Really. But I think what's cool is that I spent some time with Marky Kaufman, and I interviewed her about her work, and she really opened my eyes to some stuff and like got me out of my like suburbia box, and that was like a really cool experience, because it wasn't that I didn't agree, I just didn't know, like,
cool.
and that was really cool. And like I think that's one article that if you guys pick up edition 4 that I'm really proud of, and I spent like 10 hours like doing that. And yeah, so yeah, that's kind of a long way ramble, but yeah.
Very cool. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, man. So what's your favorite book or zine or magazine that you read, man? Like what's out there that I don't know about?
Um, well, so the the favorite book that I've been part of the last little bit is through my friend's group, Becca. She created something called the Northern Film Collective, which is an Instagram group to highlight Canadian film photographers, because there's all sorts of groups to highlight American film photographers, digital photographers, all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't really anything that was like Canada specific. So she started this up and was running it by herself. And I joined to help her curate it last year. And we also brought in a couple other people to help curate it too. But one of the ideas that she wanted to do with the group, and why she wanted help with curation, was that she could take some time to put together like an annual. And
Cool.
so she had this idea to once a year put out a book of Canadian film photography and highlight all sorts of different Canadian film photographers in this like yearly annual. So we called it, NFC Volume 1, Northern Film Collective, and we launched that late last year and did a pre-order just to see like what kind of interest there was on it, and then based the ordering off of the pre-order, and we did a run of 150 books and ended up selling out a lot quicker than we expected. Like we probably could have done like a 250 run and still had sold out on it probably. But it was really cool because being part of that project was neat, and it's my favorite book right now because there's all these people in it that, this is for many of them the very first time they've ever been published in something.
Isn't that
Uh, and it was very cool just to see like all these people's work and seeing familiar things in Canada from a different perspective, because like I've had the privilege to be able to travel a few times across Canada and see different parts of Canada. So that's my favorite one right now.
Are there any left anywhere?
No, so it's sold out completely. But we are going to be starting submissions soon for Volume 2. So that'll probably be opening up late August, early September. And then she'll probably leave the submissions open for a couple of months just to get people to submit photos in. And then over the winter, she'll put together the book again, and we'll do another like spring launch of that volume. But we're thinking of doing, because that one is like just a really big project. We're thinking of putting together a couple of more like maybe themed zines where we can pull people in on those ones. So those will be interesting. And then I'm working on a couple of like books myself. One's done. I just need to do the pre-order for it. I've just been slacking between moving and in life and all that.
Dude, wait till, like October and do like super duper Black Friday like a month ahead of time. And then
Yeah,
like
it
you're like a
works.
good pickup, man.
Yeah, maybe like it's done.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
like it's ready. I just need to like put the pre-order out on it. It's all Polaroids. It's actually here's the. Do I have it here? Yeah. Called it Quarantineroids.
All right.
The first 53 days of Polaroid during lockdown, or the first 53 days of Polaroid during lockdown. And when we first went into the state of emergency in Toronto, we had a stay-at-home order that was supposed to last 2 weeks. It ended up lasting over 3 months. And since it was only supposed to last 2 weeks, I was like, I'll just take a Polaroid a day. That's
Right.
no biggie. And then it pushed into months, and I was like, this project's going to bankrupt me. Keep
I
up
will
this.
financially recover from this.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, I'm going to end it at 53 days. And I put together, it's like a 5x7
Cool.
book. And it's, what is it, 100 some pictures in it. And it's all different format. Like it's mostly integral film shot with a 1-step plus, because I was stuck at home by myself and needed the remote to take a bunch of pictures. But then I did some experiments where like I put integral film in the 4x5 and played with that, shot some pack film, some SLR 680, some with the Impossible I1, which is an absolute piece of shit. But it's actually, so it's a shitty camera that I've used, but it's actually kind of interesting when you've kind of learned to work around how shitty it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can do some kind of stuff with it. The 1-step plus, though, I feel that's a hugely underrated camera, and it deserves a lot more respect than it receives. It's actually a pretty cool camera.
Yeah, there's just something about like the aesthetics of like using an old camera that like just screams like cool to me, and I think that camera just doesn't look cool. You know what I mean? Like I think technically it's awesome. Like I think it
Yeah,
does pretty well, right? But it doesn't scream like I don't know. It's missing.
it's kind of grown on me a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Go?
I I think that does that answer the question. Uh, I think that it's a good consumer product to keep the film I Love alive.
That's fair.
I think it's a good business move. I think it makes sense. I think it's cheaper. I think people don't care about the size. They want. Remember those iZone cameras that were like little
Yeah.
thin? It's that for this generation, and that's
So the iZones were interesting because they were a loss leader. So Polaroid lost money making them because they had to be handmade. Since
oh
they were so small, they couldn't machine them. So they were handmade in Mexico, and that's why iZone eventually got killed. Was they were not making any money on iZone. It was costing them money.
gotcha.
Even with Mexican labor, they couldn't make it cheap enough.
That's crazy. That means it was never going to work then. But yeah, I think it's what it is, man. I think it's cool, but um, I think what I'm really excited about is, or what I would be excited about is, if they can make duochrome film, why can't they make, like, I would pay big money to get like screwed up time zero film in a new way. Like if they could somehow make the chemical spread and that would make those flames for me, I would pay for that. And then
Well,
go ahead.
so here's the problem. Like this is why Impossible had to start from scratch, and why it's a Polaroid compatible film and it's not Polaroid film. So Dr. Land was a very secretive man. So it's like, yeah, how SX70 had that, like, moniker around it, whereas a military project, um, with all of the recipes for the different formulas and stuff, the compounds aren't actually listed. They're just in code names. And the only people that knew what the code names were the chemical plants that were making those chemicals. And now most of them no longer exist or have any records of those things. And so even though Polaroid now has all the intellectual property that has all that stuff, all the recipes are in code. They don't know what the actual compounds are to make them, which is why they had to go back to the drawing board and build new chemical processes, because they didn't know what the original recipes were. And also the chemicals that were available at the time of those different products are illegal now in most cases, or not created.
Well, that's what just happened with Fuji, right? Like a week ago,
Yeah,
right?
that's why they kill the Velvia.
Shouldn't they just make an exception for that film? Am I stupid? Like, wouldn't it, like, does it have to be a blanket wide ruling? I mean,
Well, it's just Fuji killing things because Fuji likes to kill things.
except in that.
Yeah, like Fuji has the weirdest business model ever, where it's like, oh, this is popular and people like it. Cool, let's stop making it.
Dude, like, all right, dude, like, I've been, like, with, we always try and get, like, we need sponsors to do what we do, right? Like, we're not shy off that. We have 6 sponsors a year. I've tried to get out in front of so many big companies, and like I get it, dude. Like I'm a small fish. Like I get it. But like what I don't understand is like even with Polaroid, like they like shut down the magazine last year or 2 years ago. And it was an online magazine. Like it costs you nothing to do this. And I don't understand. And I even asked them, I emailed them like a year ago or a year and a half ago. I was like, dude, like I will do this for you. Like you'll have to pay me, but like I have the know-how. I already know all the people doing it. Like it'd be easy. Like I don't understand why they're not more community focused, and I get they want to be a consumer product company, but they don't, they're not an artist company anymore. They're really not.
No, but I have to like tip my hat to Lomography for that because Lomography does some good community outreach.
Oh yeah, they're great. And Brigitte I think she's in the Brooklyn office.
Yeah.
She is the coolest. She helps me all the time. They're not one of our sponsors, but like we work together on things occasionally. And we did like a top 20 Lomography uh, post that I curated like, I don't know, 6, 7 months ago. And then like, of course, like the Cinecell thing, I'm like, I'm just gonna do all turquoise and all purple because it's so cool. But not really, but a lot of it was. But anyways, yeah, they're great at that, and they've really well. That's how they started too, right? Like the Lomography Association from 50 years ago, and that's their roots, unlike Polaroid, which is more corporate. So, um,
More corporate, but like Polaroid, and shout out to Brigitte because she's awesome. I
yeah,
absolutely adore her. Polaroid did lots of really cool stuff back in their day, though. Like they had one of the largest private art collections um, of like artists from all over the world at one point because one of the things that Polaroid did back in the day is they would have artists either on staff or artists that they sponsored with materials to create art.
oh,
And like Andy Warhol was one of them, Ansel Adams was one of them. There's like, thousands of artists that were either supported or employed by Polaroid in some way to create art with that medium. And part of the requirement with it was they would give art to Polaroid to keep in this collection. And the reason why most of them agreed to that that agreement was Polaroid swore they would never sell or break up the art collection. Like it was just to have like this historical record of the progress of this medium and the things people were collecting. And that unfortunately was one of the victims of the liquidation of assets was banks got in there and they're like, this is worth a lot of fucking money. We don't care about people who are long gone and the promises that they made. So they broke it up into geographic collections. So there was the American collection and the European collection and like they sold it off in the different collections. But back in the day, Polaroid did used to be very community focused and
that's so cool, man. Like I don't understand why they wouldn't do that now. And like,
well, so it's like Polaroid back then could do it because they had a war chest and they could afford to do that kind of stuff. Like the projects that old Polaroid used to do were crazy. Like in the Wensberg book, he talks about this grad student that Edwin hired and sent her out to like I think it was like in New Mexico or Arizona to like this small town, and she was supposed to run this project where for an entire year every single resident of that town was given a Polaroid camera and as much Polaroid film that they could use, and she was like there to distribute and dole it out and collect the photos. But the idea was if they made Polaroid just part of everyday life, what would happen from that? Like, would people create more? What kind of things would they document?
we're all
And,
just now.
well, who knows? But she was like, it was a total waste of money and it went nowhere. But like that was what Polaroid did back then was like, this is interesting. I want to see where this goes. Send someone out there, give them resources because we have the money to do that. The guy that was tasked with creating the color pack film, um, he didn't actually start doing anything in the lab until 2 years after he was tasked with it because had he gone straight in the lab and started working on it, Dr. Land would have ripped his head off because that wasn't what he paid people to do. He paid people to be the ultimate experts in whatever he's tasking them to do. So before they even start working on the task, he wanted them to go and research everything revolving that task to
Yeah.
have a deep understanding of what they were about to embark on before they started doing it. So this dude spent like over 2 years researching different color palettes and what happens when you mix all these different colors before he went into the lab and started working on formulas for color film. And that was the kind of company they were, where they had that sort of runway to just be like, yeah, this guy's going to make color film. sometime. Who
Yeah,
knows? He's working on it.
that's
We don't
cool.
want to rush him. That's the process. And the problem with Polaroid today is they don't have that war chest that all of that war money gave Polaroid of old. So they don't have the runway to do these things. You know, they're a very small company. Like the head office that runs everything is probably like a few dozen people
Yeah.
that are running everything globally.
I've talked to, like, I'm not hating on anybody. Like,
Yeah.
they supported me. They supported, like, a lot of my friends. Like, I just think the culture has changed over the last 5 years, right?
Well, it definitely has because they've had to
Yeah.
adapt and like there's the importance of being profitable so they can continue
Yeah.
to do that kind of stuff, which is like why I'm sorry to say this out there, but that's why Spectre needed to die is
Yeah.
that wasn't really something profitable,
There was like
uh,
7 people shooting Spectra.
and they really loved it.
All 7 of them, man.
Like I had a ton of Spectra.
Yeah.
When I was leaving Toronto, I boxed it up and just mailed it to a friend because I was like, every time I use this film, it fucking infuriates me and it jams my camera and
Yep.
fuck this film. Like I'm just done
Yep.
with it.
Yeah, dude. And I had a, yeah. And those Spectras look like I'm in like the 90s movie Hackers. It's like I feel like like all the buttons on the back and shit.
Yeah,
But
it's like you need to hack the Gibson to take a picture.
yeah, man. But hey, man, I gotta drop my son off to my co-parent. But I'm
Of
actually
course, just Paul had one question before you
yeah,
drop off here.
10 minutes.
It's, where is it? Paul said, "Do you feel a photographer is a photographer regardless of medium, film, or digital?" And thoughts on Instax wide?
I'll take the first one. You take the second one.
Sure thing.
Cool, man. I say, yeah, totally. I think, if you didn't catch the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about how you don't have to produce art to be a photographer. And I think that's the important difference. Like, not all photos are art and not all art is photography. And I think as long as you keep that in mind, like, you're good. I think we do enough of segregating ourselves from other people based on like ridiculous classifications of whatever ethnicity, gender, whatever, right? That like maybe we shouldn't do that with digital and analog. Like I know a bunch of digital guys that shoot great shit. Is it like what my specific interest is? Like no. Does it mean they're not photographers? No. And like there's people who do iPhone stuff that have way more cred than I'll ever have. But go them. That's my answer. Go them.
I agree with that. Like, I mean, as long as you're creating and not hurting other people, go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Feels right to you. And on Instax Wide is a beautiful film medium. Um, Fuji's cameras are pieces of shit.
Yep, the battery door on my 210 wide broke like every time.
Yeah, and just like, the plastic lenses, and it just doesn't do justice. But like, Dave Rollins took a picture of me with Instax Wide on his Crown Graphic, and
Yeah, dude, I have that picture. It's so good.
yeah,
Dude, it's so cool. I totally forgot about that and I got excited.
yeah.
But
And
yeah,
there was a dude
intent
at,
doing it with
with a goose. He had the Instax Wide
dude,
on a goose, and like that was beautiful too. So it's like Fuji makes a beautiful film. Like all the Instax film is really beautiful. Most of the Instax cameras are complete garbage. Like I don't even use the Instax cameras anymore. Like I have a Leica Sofort for the Mini because it has a glass lens. It's nice, and then I use a Lomography Square for the square film because it has a glass lens and it's really nice. And the medium looks great on those cameras. So
I've always wanted to try and shoot instant film on like I guess a 4x5, like integral film. And like
yeah.
everyone tells me you can't do it.
Oh, you can. It's quite easy actually. So all you have to do is take an old 4x5 sheet and then just sort of like trace out on it the film and then cut in the corners on the 4x5 sheet so you could tuck the corners of the integral film onto the
Yeah.
4x5 sheet and then just load that into a film holder. For Polaroid film, if you're going to do it, face it front. If you're going to do Fujifilm, face it backwards, because Polaroid film exposes from the front of the frame.
Okay.
Instax film exposes from the rear of the frame.
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to do that and do like some shallow stuff and like, but now that I have this with the, well, my whole thing was wanted to do use a 10 stop, and I thought it'd be easier to do it on a bigger camera. But now that I found this little thing, I'm pretty stoked to try it. And now I always thought, I was like, I've been trying to do that for like a year, or 2 years. I'm like, I've always talked about that I wanted to do it. And I'm gonna say, I'll make a mean word, but like some gal beat me to it and did like this beautiful long exposure on the beach, and it's like the prettiest Polaroid I've ever seen. And I'm like, you beat me to it. And I've been talking for like 2 years that I was gonna do this, and now I feel ashamed and dumb, but not really. But you know what I mean. So, whoever that is, we just featured it on our Instagram today, actually. So shout out to Tori and Lynn for being our social media gurus and making my life easy. But it was a guy. It was Luigi. He did a shot called Ethereal. Anyways, it's on our Instagram at Analog Forever Zine.
Nice.
And, dude, it's sick. It's just sick. And I'm jealous. So,
well, I'm curious to see what you get with the 10-stop ND. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I saw that one on the
yeah,
post.
man. It's so cool. So, yeah, man. Real quick, if you guys want to find where I'm at on the internet, and most importantly, the magazine, we're passionate about it. We love analog film. We feature and interview photographers of all levels of career. We've featured one artist in this last edition that just came out. Never been in print before. Never done an interview before. Like, it's out there. The opportunity's there with us, at least. And we're pretty fair. You can find us on Instagram at Analog Forever Zine and analogforevermagazine.com on the internet. And if you guys want to buck off your subscription from now until, we'll say, Sunday night, you can use the code Merlin and you can subscribe. And that's cool. And then you can find me at just my name, Michael Behlen, on Instagram. And my website is don'tshakeitlikeapolaroid.com.
Because you shouldn't.
It's not perception. It's rude. It's mean.
Well, it's not that only it's rude and it's not mean. It's not firm until it sets. So if you shake it too aggressively, you could actually smudge the photo.
Yeah, man. So common misconception. Don't listen to Outcast. Listen to your boy.
Outcast lied. They lied. They huge lie. But thank you so much for being on, Micheal. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to have Michael Delacrosse from Retro Photo York on.
Yeah!
He's going to be, I believe, in a U-Haul driving back from Reno with a bunch of stuff. So we'll see how long the chat lasts while he is on the road. But really curious to see what he's up to and hear about the work that he's been doing with the new store that he's launched there in Philly, which sounds amazing.
And you can pick up copies of Analog Forever there, too, because he's one of our newest stockists. So
yeah, I saw that. He sent me some photos of the stack of books he's got there. So, yeah, it should be fun. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see all you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
You're
Cheers.
welcome. Cheers.